Hello guys, my name is Amit Sani and I welcome you on this 16th July at the Hindu analysis video. In the morning these videos come, in the evening the MCQ lessons they come. So follow these lessons religiously, and the important current affair based derived questions we discuss in the evening. So explanations are also given PDF. You can get on my Facebook group, and this pocket news app by StudyIQ that is trending on Google Play. You can download that. And these are important affordable courses by StudyIQ by top faculties. The description is given below the video, so you can access that. And these are the important courses. Regarding them, you can inquire on these numbers. You can call on these numbers, and this is the website's address. And here you will get the PDF. Send me a request on this group, and the Telegram's link you will also find there. You can follow me on Instagram too. And this is all. And these are the words that I found today. Use them into sentences. Now, again a setback for Chandrayaan2. It was getting hurdles in 2018. Then they gave a window in January, February this year. But that time also it was not possible. Now, again in July month, when this window was given from 9th to 15th of July, and on 15th of July, it was about to be launched by this Bahubali. Bahubali means this GSLV Mark III M1. Just before 1 hour before the launch, it was called off because some technical snag was there. So that was the reason, and president was also there to experience this launch there, but it was not possible. So again, because GSLV has been experiencing difficulties since its inception, so again this time you see PSLV is very successful launch vehicle, but GSLV for the heavier ones and cryogenic we developed on our own, and due to some technical snag, a new window would be given for the Chandrayaan2. So every time they need to calibrate these things, and they need to see the conditions, the rotations of the celestial bodies and all, and it's not that much simple to relaunch it very soon. So they will give a different window, but it would be soon. This time KC1 said that it would be the final move and we will not fail this time, but again they had to call it off. Now, regarding articles today, 3 important articles there are, and very less informations are there apart from these editorials. So we will give some attention here. Surit Parasharthi talks about a perfect dilemma between the law and the justice in the context of 103rd constitutional amendment. It was regarding that reservation to the economically backward class, and there one side there is law, and law says that it's a legitimate thing to give this quota to those economically unprivileged sections, and practically it is for sure that it should be given because it's a real difficulty, it's a real disadvantage, and these students, they find it very difficult because already they are struggling with their economic conditions, and when they see that reserved quota candidates, they get these seats in educational institutes or maybe in the case of jobs. So it's a kind of a great psychological pressure. So that is the case, and it was a huge political pressure also. But there is some issue, there are some issues here. What are those? This article would be important for GS paper 2 mainly, and it's a very important topic for essay because it's a social situation, because this issue is coming out of a social situation which is prevalent in India, and the issue of reservation, why it came, the definition of it, the understanding of it, the reason behind that, that is also very much relevant here. Again, the hearing is due, so Supreme Court has to decide about this constitutional challenge, and it's a huge challenge because majority and some reserved sections and all. So it's a very complex situation, and because it is the case of political pacification also, so that's why it's a difficult task with Supreme Court. Now you see 2 important articles are there. One is Article 145 that talks about the substantial logic behind any particular law, whether it is complying with the constitutional values or not. Second is 142. 142 would be much more challenging because 142 talks about the right of Supreme Court that anywhere if it sees that something is very much substantial to decide about according to the law and according to the justice system, So Supreme Court can take up any matter with itself, and it can decide about the crucial case, and the decree it would give after that. President and the state, they have the responsibility that they implement it in all senses. So Supreme Court's verdict is to be implemented in its entirety. So that is the case with Article 142. So these two articles are very relevant these days. In the case of Babri Masjid also, this Article 142 is very much important. Why? Because a lot of aggression would be there if the court would decide something against the majority opinion. So political pressures are also there, and as I told you that today the age is going on in India in a way that anything becomes controversial, and social media is there. So 142 is very important, because a lot of pressure can be there against Supreme Court's ruling. So that's why the implementation would be very important responsibility of the state. So that's the case. So here, when Supreme Court takes help from its own precedents and commonly accepted legal theories, it takes up and to find some kind of a guidance regarding some matter. So principled answers are there, but the issue of equality is very important here to see, because if you go into the history, then it was introduced in the princely states first. Why this issue of reservation was introduced there? Sociologist Gail Oment wrote in these pages. He said that whole history of the struggle for reservation has also been a debate about its very meaning and purpose. So two things are important: meaning and purpose. What is the controversy? Because why it was brought up here? Because India's society is not an equal society, and when we have become the democratic country, then equality is the basic concept. Without equality, there is no human right, there is nothing you can say about democracy. So equality is important, and there was no equality in our society. There were different layers, and that is the reason that they had to bring some affirmative action to bring equality in the society. In princely states, when it was introduced, the situation was such that almost all the government jobs, means the public recruitments, they were coordinated by the higher caste and the privileged caste and the powerful people. So that is why at that time government job was very much a elite service, and all people wanted that status, and that's why that category of babus, that was a status symbol there, and those were all cornered by higher caste there, and those were not available for the so-called SC, ST, OBC sections today. So these sections, they were not getting them anyway. So that's why a tool to assimilate deprived groups into public life, this was introduced, a promise against prejudice and a means of reparation, means it was a kind of a compensation. So that's why they called it a compensatory discrimination principle. So this is the root cause, and as I told you, if we talk about reservation, if we talk about this question that is it justified or not to introduce the economic criteria there, then we need to go into the very meaning and purpose of the reservation there. I know majority of you people, you would not like this debate in this way, because people are against reservation already, and this mindset is very imposed on our what we must say a public opinion. So that's why, but we need to go into the logic, and we have to see all these things, and historical problem is also a reality. What I must say, if somebody is economically weak, then it is all a result of the previous economic history of that family, and the next generation that bears the burden of that, and they need to make many more efforts, and these are more than others, to become economically sound. So economic criteria also has connections with the history, and here there is a logic that economic scenario can be changed. You can become rich, you can become poor, that is changeable, but caste labeling, that is not changeable. And because there was historical injustice to some groups, So that is why the positive affirmative action was taken. That was the reason. Although that's a different case, that it was about to be there for just 10 years, and then it was about to be ended. But why it was introduced? There is the meaning and purpose, and as I told you, so we have to compare the situation today. Is that meaning real for today's scenario also? Yes, it is, because caste persists, and today the kind of time we are observing, this social learning is getting bolstered more and more day by day. Why? Because we just saw the case of that girl from Kanpur. She is the daughter of BJP MLA, and she got married to a Dalit boy. So it became a huge thing, and they called it a kalank. That the way she married a Dalit boy, that was a kalank for her family. Why? Because the guy was Dalit, and that is why they were opposing the marriage. And the way she did that, that was much more offensive for those people. And the way they threatened her, and then she took this way, and that was actually very problematic, because no family would want this kind of discussion in public this way. So that is why it was problematic. But the whole issue started with the caste problem. So the caste persists. If you go to the countryside, villages, small towns, everywhere, this is ingrained in our psychology. So it is not moved. Although the politics has bolstered the issue of caste in this country, but why it is that? Politics is not without any public opinion, and public opinion has this theory in their mind. They believe in caste, they live caste, and anybody from an upper caste, they have this psychological issue in their mind, and it is true for most of the people. I'm not talking about all of the people, but most of the people, and the majority of the population, they follow caste. And biggest evidence is the marriage system. Because there is a caste system prevailing in this country, that is why the marriage system prevails in this way. Now more than 90% of the people, they would defy those marriages, they would oppose those marriages which are outside of their caste system. So the real reason still persists there, and that is why it's a very complex issue, and Supreme Court has recognized this thing many times. You see, they say that the petitioners against the economic criteria, they say that it does mandate is a quota that will apply only to citizens other than the classes that are already eligible for reservation. Means SC, ST, OBC categories, they have got their reservation, but that is a different basis. And the kind of basis which is given here, that is the economic criteria, that would be applicable to all of the people. It must be applicable, but it is not given to these already reserved categories. Although this looks bizarre to talk like that, because they have got their own reservation, but it is about the criteria, that economic criteria that you are creating here, how it can be only for the unreserved category. Because economic basis, when you are putting here apparently, then it is applicable to the poor people from those categories also, but those are not given this advantage. So that is the case, and it has become so complex issue that many petitions are there against this economic criteria, that whether it is countering the important value that is there in constitution, and the kind of affirmative action which was taken in the original constitution, and that was to bring equality in the name of religion, in the name of reservation. So is this move, is this economic basis is countering that basic structure? That is the question. So you have to understand it very carefully, because it is a very complex issue. So the writer says, whether that idea is so intrinsic to the constitution, the reservation idea, that departing from it will somehow breach the document's basic structure. Is that so? That is the constitutional question that Supreme Court has to decide now. So it's a huge responsibility with Supreme Court now. And petitioners say that the power to amend the constitution is there with Parliament. We all know that, and the laws are made by Parliament only. So the power to amend the constitution, when it lies with Parliament, then it necessarily include a power to decide how to guarantee equal status to all persons. And when you give reservation on economic criteria, then there is a huge question, that is it killing the idea of affirmative action with the support of reservation, because economic criteria was not accepted in the starting debates. That is the reason. And if you are starting giving the reservation on the economic criteria, then that affirmative action, that has no value. That is the case. And if we go into the history, then we find this here, that the idea was always to disavow caste monopoly in the public sector, because those jobs were given to the privileged class only at that time, and that is why the reservation came. Also, that was the affirmative action. And Dalits, Adivasis, they were never given this access. They were always denied the access to equal status, and that is why it was brought up there. And it is also not the case of merit, because we saw when this reservation came till today, if we go with the data, public opinion and the WhatsApp forwards, they may tell you the different story. But what is the official data? Official data says that although there is the case of upliftment because of the reservation, and in group C and D services, there are multiple jobs given to SC, ST and OBC categories, but their representation in the A class and B class officer rank services, these are not appropriate. These are very less in number. If we saw the case of UGC's 200 point roster system, so there the data tells us that at the level of assistant professor and the associate professor and those categories, the reservation is only around 1 to 2% for OBC category. So that representation is very, very less, and that's why it says that till now we have not reached up to those levels, and there may be different problems, and vacancies are declining. That is again a truth. So that is also a reason here. And as I told you that even though the depressed class are educated and qualified, means it is not the case of merit. It is not a truth that these people do not have any merit, and that's why they are not being there. They are denied these opportunities by various means, and that is why Constitution had to secure their rights and secure their particular quota there. So that was the reason. So the philosophy tells us that justice tells you a different story and law tells you a different story, and there is a difference between both of them, because from justice laws should be made, but today laws are made because of the public pressure, and there may be a case of injustice ingrained in that idea. So that is the case. So when it was introduced, the first amendment introduced in 1951, then also this issue of economic basis was expressly rejected, because the distinctive theory of justice was applied there, and they said that economic criteria, the economic conditions are not permanent, but the caste is permanent, and the discrimination because of caste, which is still prevalent thing in society, that reason remains, and that's why the reservation remains. How to remove that? We have no argument about caste removal today. We have no debate, we have no movement against caste system. Whatever movement we see, that is against reservation system. So we need to talk about caste. That is the main issue of theory of justice here. In Kerala versus N.M. Thomas case also, Supreme Court held that reservation based on social and economic educational backgrounds, far from being an exception, ought to be seen as an intrinsic facet of the idea of equality. Means the existing reservation system based on the social and educational backwardness, that is to bring the idea of equality, and there is no mention of economic criteria here, and the existing system is upheld by Supreme Court. So there must be some very solid reasons for that. We may think in a different way, because the educated class, the logical class, and the students who are struggling hard for the government jobs and all, their numbers are minuscule, because majority is getting the private job there. And in all these cases, cumulatively, the already reserved categories, they are finding it very, very difficult because of the caste regions, and the marriage system is the biggest evidence there that these regions still remain in the society. That's the case. Okay, so this is all about this article, and you have to write an important mains question on this basis, that economic basis, how much justified is that? Although it is going on now, it is applicable now, but the next hearing is due. So what is the responsibility? What kind of responsibility is there with Supreme Court now, and what is the social situation? How we can maintain the affirmative action, and how can we maintain the equality issue in society, and how much justified is the economic criteria? You have to write a mains question, and you can write that question within 300 words. Okay, next, a hand-to-mouth budget. Here the writer is criticizing the present budget. She says that Nirmala Sitharaman, our finance minister, she relegated the numbers or the budgeting to the fine print in a break with tradition. Means it has not happened in the past that numbers are not given for these budget allocations for different schemes and all, and they are usually presented as a part of the speech on the floor of the house. And it doesn't matter how difficult the situation is, how uncomfortable the situation is for the government, they always give these numbers, but this time it was not given, and that is why it was heavily criticized, and many announcements were there, but not substance anybody observed there. And that is why they said that it was a more of a political rhetoric than being a budget. Here some data tell us. They say that they brought an interim budget in February month. We all know about that. And now this budget is in front of us. So it fell short of the interim budget's estimates also. And there is a huge gap between these two numbers. 0.9% of the GDP. Whooping 0.9% of the GDP. And our GDP is huge. And 0.9% of that number. And that is the gap between the interim budget's estimates and the present estimates. It's a huge number. CJ figures show that direct tax collection for 18-19 fell short by 74,774 crores, while those of indirect tax collection fell short by 93,198 crores. And budget speech saved the Modi government the embarrassment of owning up to this shortfall on the floor of the house, because they did not give us many numbers. And they overestimated the tax collection first, and now they are falling short of it. New budget estimates for gross tax revenue is 90,936 crores, lower than what was projected in the interim budget. And this is the situation. Despite the higher surcharge they have imposed on the people who are earning more than 2 crore rupees, and the additional custom duties which they have introduced now. So in spite of these additions, they are falling short of these numbers. 90,000 crore rupees gap is there. So that is the reason that they are criticizing it heavily. And if you look at this number of gross tax revenue to GDP ratio, budgeted to slip from 11.9% in 18-19 to 11.7% in 19-20, means the collection is declining. The direct tax to GDP ratio is again declining from 6.4 to 6.3, means these numbers should have risen. If we have done so great economic development in the last 5 years, we have announced many schemes there, then these numbers should have gone up. We had many initiatives there, and Make in India, Stand Up India, and a lot of things we can count on our fingers that those were heavily advertised. And all the claims by the government, they say a different story, but these numbers, they say a different story. These numbers should have gone up. If the economy is grown, then people should have a higher earning, and then they should have paid more taxes. But these are lower collections, and we have robust systems now. GST system is applicable now. So these numbers should have gone too high, but it is not the case. So maybe these things look political in a sense, but this observation and these official numbers, they are not telling a lie. That is the reason, and that's why this gap is apparent. And where they are filling this gap, that is again a very problematic move. Although they have made a target of disinvestment, but this is not always a wise decision. And this is again a big question on their working. Means they are not able to collect proper revenue numbers. Then they are filling this gap with these disinvestment targets, and they are advertising it as a achievement, but actually it is not achievement. It is something of your own that state owns, and you are selling those things, and that is why this is a disinvestment. And maybe it's a earning for the present, but what about the future? You are selling your own assets. So how you can hail it as a achievement? That is the thing that many experts are complaining of. And they made a target of 90,000 crore rupees last year. This time it is 1,05,000 crore rupees target of disinvestment, means 15,000 crore rupees more than the last one. So that is the reason. And they say that you are writing a growth story, but on what supports? Are you writing a growth story from a support system of disinvestment? This is problematic, and that is why she says that it's a hand-to-mouth budget. And these revenue expenditure, you see, the salary payments, pension payments, and these expenditures are not creating any asset there for the future. So you can call it day-to-day expenditures. So revenue expenditures, they are rising, increase of 14.3% over the revised estimate of the previous year. And the capital expenditure, their growth is declining, means the capital expenditure that creates assets, but that is declining, and the revenue expenditure is rising, and the interest payments, that is 1/3 of the total revenue receipts, that is also rising. Means in the future this would be a big burden on us, and we won't be able to invest much in our capital expenditure, and we won't be able to invest much in our infrastructure. So that is the reality. But what government is announcing here, that is also very bizarre. They say that we will invest 100 lakh crore rupees in next 5 years. 100 lakh crore rupees in next 5 years means 20 lakh crore rupees a year. All people are raising big questions against this announcement. They say that how it is possible, from where you will bring the money? Your numbers are telling a different story. These are on a decline, and you are talking about $5 trillion economy and 100 lakh crore rupees investment in the infrastructure. From where it is going to come? Because the domestic savings are on a lower side, public investment is on a lower side, private investment is stuck. So how you can invest 100 lakh crore rupees? From where it will come? Will it come through the air? All are asking this question. From where you are announcing these numbers? What are the sources? Your only source that is left, that is the foreign borrowings. And regarding that also, there is an issue of sovereign bonds, and that is hugely problematic. Even Raghuram Rajan yesterday said that this is a very problematic move, the borrowings through the sovereign bonds, because it has not happened in the past. Even during the crisis of 1991, we did not go with the sovereign bond scheme. We did not put our image on stake. Last time when we raised these bonds, those were through SBI's way. So SBI was putting its stake there. Now we as a state, we are putting our stake there. These are sovereign bonds by the government of India. So that's why in this age where so much uncertainty is there in the international scenario, how you can go for these sovereign bonds? So a lot of questions were there. A lot of opposition members were asking these questions. So that's why they clarified that we are just testing the waters. We are not going for a full scale money raising there. So what is left now? Only FDI is left now. FDI is a kind of a investment by the foreign investors, and they would want a bigger return there. So ultimately the thing is that we have made a plan of a $5 trillion economy. Can we achieve this target with around 9% of growth, real growth numbers? Nominal should be more than 12 to 13. This GDP growth rate. Can we achieve these targets with the help of foreign borrowings only? No, a big no. And that is why it is the issue. So we need to see that what they clarify here. They say that only 10% of our borrowings we would raise by sovereign bonds, and other things would be dependent on the private investment there. But not many hopes are there from the private investment scenario. Although the banking crisis is towards a progress, but that is a very slow progress, and you cannot rely on those things which are improving from a major shock. So that's the thing. So you can write an important article here also about the foreign borrowings issue. Next, digital payments. In this article, the writer Padma Shri Gal Sampath, she talks about an emerging story of online payment systems, and especially in India. You see, UPI system introduced by NPCI in India, and on the basis of that, WhatsApp Pay is putting its stake, and they are not given the license till now. But the condition that we are putting here, that is of data localization. But the writer says that it is not of much help, because the plan of Facebook is huge, and they would have metadata access there, and our data localization issue that would be limited to the payments data localization. Metadata would be accessible to Facebook, and Facebook has a huge plan. They are clubbing these Instagram, WhatsApp and Facebook social identification services into a different domain, and by this clubbing they would be able to access a lot of areas, social and financial, in this country. And you see, their networks are huge. Facebook is a new entrant here, so it has not much experience. PayPal as a service, we all know PayPal has the biggest customer base, and companies in China, they are also running on this formula. WeChat has a big customer basis, so Facebook also wants to come down here, and WhatsApp has a huge network. Important network externalities are also there, so they can use this network there. So if they become successful here, then you cannot imagine that there would not be any level playing field for Indian players there. As we have seen in many areas like telecom, when Jio came, it was not a level playing field. Many arguments were there, and they said that it's a nexus between the government and the Jio company, and that's why many companies were suffering. And this is the case. We are observing that some business houses, they are supported in a way, and here if WhatsApp Pay would be successful, then it would create a huge imbalance there. And again, the issue of the question of privacy that remains. This big tech's foray into financial services would be huge, because you see, you suppose a condition, if you own a business where all the payments in this world, they are done through your system, how much rich you can become, you cannot imagine. Because financial transactions, they are like the way we are breathing. The economy is breathing with these transactions, so transactions are every moment, and if these are done through your services, then that is the biggest business in this world. So that is the case. So especially payments, these are very sensitive areas, and Facebook is relatively new, but they are targeting India there. They cannot gain a foothold in US because they have strict laws, but here in India, not great laws are there, not great limitations and restrictions are there. So they are targeting in India, and India is a huge country with 1.3 billion people. If it is becoming a successful story in India, then they will apply it to other developing countries. So India is very unique for Facebook, and other companies like Alibaba, that is from China. Alibaba's Alipay is there, Tencent's WeChats are there. They are making waves there, and China is a huge country, but next target is India. India has a huge population there. So I always say that all the companies are focusing on Indian market there. Any kind of business, and these kind of great businesses, like you're earning based on the transactions which are happening in this country. So what can be bigger than that? And issue is of the privacy, bigger than the market approval. The issue of privacy is huge, because you see, India is serious about giving local firms an advantage. We all know they are claiming so, but these steps are not in this direction. It should leverage this immense opportunity. That is the case, that India should leverage this immense opportunity to the local players there, the local firms there. And with the right policy incentives, local firms could capture large shares of the digital payment markets. Beam, UPI, these are going on, as we all know, they should be appreciated. But the same story would be repeated here, as we see in the telecom sector and in some other PSUs and all these sectors. The level playing field that is needed here. But if we would allow WhatsApp Pay here, it would be a totally different scenario because it is huge. Okay, and the largest fallout of granting market approval to a global player will be in the area of privacy, as I told you, because the case, as I explained, that if WhatsApp agrees to set up data localization in India, that within India's physical boundaries it set up the data centers there, then also the localization requirements of the government would be limited to payments data only. And as a result, Facebook will still have access to metadata on all payment transactions, which can be matched with the data that the company already has access to on Instagram, Messenger and WhatsApp for the same users. So this metadata would be a huge issue, and Facebook would be able to interfere in all areas like social, financial of every individual in this country. And it is going to be the best repository of the data, and they can play with your life literally. They can influence you in they can influence your life in a huge way. And that is why when this issue of the biased internet service came, then also it was a big thing. Means they will show you the biased information which will be useful for them. And many cases are also going on Facebook. The penalty is put up on Facebook by America only. And this Cambridge Analytica case, we all know about that. Many data leaks were there. So these kind of things are extremely derogatory for citizens and extremely useful for companies like Facebook. So we need to make sure that we bring robust policies there, robust laws there, so that consumers' privacy and their protection is safe, and no company is able to influence and manipulate their lives in this big way, because internet is something that we all are dependent on, and important technologies are coming like quantum computing. That is the future. So these companies are able to invest in those technologies, those researches like in artificial intelligence, machine learning, these quantum computing and all. These kind of things are coming, and they will change this whole world, and only these companies would be able to invest in those because they have huge capacities. So they can do anything with this world in the future. So we need to remain very, very cautious about their moves and the moves of the government, in which way they allow these companies. We need to keep a watch on the government's move also, because there can be nexuses between the governments and these big companies, and these parties, they play vicious games with public. They can do these nexuses for their election funding, and they can do anything. We have seen these things in our past, and things are going on which are really questionable. So that's the way these things are important. So this is all about this article. And next information: 12 Indian beaches in the race to crest the Blue Flag Challenge. Blue Flag Challenge started in 1985 in France. And what it is about? It is about giving a kind of recognition to these beaches who are maintaining a particular standard. Environmental conditions are upright there, and these are not polluted ones. Many criterias are there. There are nearly 33 criterias, and which must be met to qualify for a Blue Flag certification. So 12 Indian beaches are in the race. They have not got it till now. They are in the race. So please locate all these things on the map, all these locations: Padubiri, Kappad, Eden, in which state these are, what are their locations. They can be asked easily. Okay, some standards like water disposal facilities and disabled friendly facilities, first aid equipment, no access to pets in the main area of the beaches. So these are compulsory and voluntary, both kind of criterias, and it is not by any government. It is a non-governmental, non-profit organization, FEE, that is giving these Blue Flag certifications, but these are global, important one. Next, trade deficit shrinks 8% in the June. Fiscal deficit, trade deficit means more imports, less exports. but that gap is declining. That means whether we have gone with lesser imports or more exports, but exports are actually declining with some numbers, and this fiscal deficit is also declining, means we are importing less. And major commodities which led to this decline in the import is like petroleum products, rice, cotton, yarn fabrics, made up, gems, jewelries. These items we imported less in of value. So that is why, because of lesser imports, this the trade deficit, that is getting 8% decline here in the month of June if we compare it with the last year's data. So this is all for today. We will meet again tomorrow. Thanks a lot. Do come for the MCQ lesson in the evening. Thanks.